All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SIP. Just making sure that you're in the right place. The SIP is where conversation sparks connection, collaboration inspires innovation, and industry leaders tackle today's biggest challenges. Think of it as catching up over a cup of coffee or an adult beverage and the insights that move our industry forward. At TMC, we're passionate about empowering our members to thrive. Today's show features real world strategies, perspectives that only come from working together. We are fresh off of desert disruption in Scottsdale and doing a little bit of recovery. And the energy from that event is still very much alive. If you were there, you know exactly what I mean. Today's conversation is proudly sponsored by Reggora, a company that is not just talking about modernizing appraisals, they are actually doing it. So joining me today is co-founder and CEO of Reggora, Brian Zinn. Brian, welcome to the SIP.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So Jacob and AJ did an amazing job at Desert Disruption, and it was a pleasure to have them in the network and to be in attendance. But did they at least give you a little bit of FOMO for not being there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, watching this montage that you just played Did I see you on a horse? Was that?
Yes, you did. You
Yeah,
did.
definitely is not the typical mortgage exhibitor hall that I'm used to. So I got to catch the next one.
So, funny story. We had this horse idea about a year ago, and I called Stuart Crawford from Bison Ventures, and he's the vice president of the Charros of Scottsdale. Go figure. And I was like, hey, you know anyone that has a white horse? About a week later, he sent me a picture and was like, is this white enough? But so the horse, we were putting the stencil on, the TMC stencil on her butt. And she like raised her tail like she was going to go to the bathroom, but she didn't. I was like, you watch, this horse is going to poop. As soon as we got like right in front of the resort where the bar was, so you could see out the lobby and the bar of the hotel, and I was like making a turn to come back to the reception, she stood there and pooped. So it just is, it's,
Classic.
yeah, it was right on cue and highly anticipated. But so the appraisal space does not get the spotlight that it deserves, but what happens in appraisals touches everything downstream, turn times, underwriting, repurchase risk, borrower experience, all of it. So let's start at the beginning. So you and I met in 2018. And so I'm familiar with Reggora and the story leading up to about 2 years ago. So I was in the beginning where it starts, but give us a recap and talk through the evolution of Reggora.
Yeah, essentially, my co-founder, he was my college roommate. We started the company basically when we were seniors in college, right when we were graduating. And it originally started off as just the software piece to help manage the appraisal process. So we plug into, a lender's core systems like the LOS. We integrate with hundreds of AMCs and thousands of appraisers and basically work as like the software middleware to facilitate the whole process A to Z and add a bunch of automation and all that. Our end goal is always to improve borrower experience, like appraisal turn times, the cost, as well as the operational efficiency of the lenders. So first step was like, let's build this core software. We did that, launched it 2018, grew very quickly over the years, and basically hit a point where we were like, no matter how much we continue to add more to the software, we're not going to dramatically improve turn times unless we take a little bit more control over the equation. So about 2 or 3 years ago, then we launched what we call the appraisal marketplace. And it's essentially a wholly owned subsidiary that's licensed as an AMC in all 50 states. And you can think of it as kind of like an Uber style approach to appraisal fulfillment. We're using the data across the entire platform. We know this appraiser is going to be in this neighborhood on this day. We can batch orders together to really streamline the process. So that was, one example of us kind of taking the next level of tasks to automate. Then we launched this review tool and warranty to help the underwriting of the appraisal and make that much more streamlined. And then the latest version of our product is this 24-hour appraisal. So now we are getting into like very, very kind of stuff no one's ever done before. I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but 24-hour appraisal is kind of our latest innovation.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just for the audience, I was at a point, I was at Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, and we were working on our Fannie approval. And because we were growing quickly, every loan officer, every division, they want to bring their AMC with them. And we had a snowball effect through the growth period. And I think we had 17 or 18 AMCs when we were getting our Fannie approval. Fannie's like, there's no way you can manage that number of AMCs. And, we asked them, what if we could manage all 17 or 18 AMCs and the appraisals coming in to make sure that there was the rotation and the appraisers reviewing it and really manage it as if it were a single AMC. So we were using the technology to take AMCs, put them all together, and be able to manage all of our appraisals in one place. The other huge advantage that I think that I don't hear you talk about it often, but definitely is a pain point on the lender side, which is the reconciliation of appraisal payments. Accounting and operations go through this daunting task with AMCs, and there's like all this like finger pointing about, no, we paid the AMC, and the AMC's like, no, you didn't, and then operations is saying, explaining why they didn't collect the appraisal fee, and it's this back and forth. But the accounting technology that you have, the platform that you have for the accounting group to reconcile appraisal payments is often overlooked, but it's a significant time saver and also reputation saver. So you aren't like severing relationships inside of your lending walls.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I mean, there's so much like core functionality that is just we view as table stakes, but people, on kind of older legacy platforms like, wow, this is amazing that I just like forget about every single thing sometimes. But yes, I mean, it was just we worked on, the core platform still to this day gets updated, but it took us 4 or 5 years to really get to the place where it was amazing. And I saw someone in the audience comment like, crazy that you knew about it at that stage of life, but I did not. It was literally just like talking to lender customers and being like, what do you want us to build? And we built it sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like you probably couldn't believe that you're in college and you're studying about how efficient companies run, and you're like, wow, I'm going to go into this appraisal space, and the platter should be like filled with all of this information. It's like, oh my goodness, it couldn't be the most bifurcated, like archaic process. It's almost as bad as closings, right? And then closing, like, having a stack of paper as tall as you are that you have to sign.
Yes.
So you talked about control, and you can't optimize what you can't control. So that brings us to the headlines, which is the 24-hour appraisal that you mentioned. When people hear 24-hour appraisals, eyebrows definitely go up. Mine did. Walk us through what it actually means and what Reggora is doing to make this happen.
Yeah. So I'm sure many of the folks here, yourself included, in like 2020, 2021, everyone saw appraisal turn times absolutely exploded. And that was because of a mismatch between the demand and then the population of appraisers. Like appraisal is the one thing in mortgage where you actually need a physical human to go somewhere, right? So there's like laws of physics around the limitations in terms of how fast these things can get done. So in the last few years, the GSEs, were piloting new ways to get appraisals done, mostly this concept called a hybrid appraisal, where instead of the appraiser being the one to physically go to the property to do the inspection, someone else who's trained and background checked goes. And now we can open up the pool of people to actually go and do that. And the appraisers can do what they do best, which is like the analysis, comp selection, the narrative, all of that sort of stuff. So the GSEs have been piloting this for years. And then last year, they finally added hybrid appraisals to the selling guide. People don't even realize, but hybrid appraisals are applicable or eligible rather on like literally 80-90% of all conventional transactions. So you could do these on all of them, but barely anyone does them because before this innovation that we have done that I'll talk about, getting a hybrid appraisal was basically the same cost and same turn time as a traditional appraisal. So people were like, why bother doing that when there's really no benefit?
Yep.
So what our 24-hour appraisal is a modified way to get the hybrid appraisal done that takes a more holistic lens in the mortgage process. So most lenders, they wait until intent to proceed to order the appraisal because of the TRID laws, associated with
Yep.
you can't collect the appraisal fee and no one wants to be on the hook for the appraisal. So vast majority of folks, they wait until intent to proceed. Then, you try to find the appraiser accepts, they go schedule the inspection and then come back and do the report. We're completely changing that order of the flow. And essentially much earlier in the mortgage process. So think like as soon as the purchase contract is signed or as soon as an application is complete for a refi, we're going to send someone instantly to the property. And so now we're talking about days before ITP, we are already completing the inspection. So now, by the time intent to proceed rolls around and you actually go to hit order appraisal, all we need to do is send it to the appraiser and they finish the report. Now, part of the reason why this is like amazing is because Reggora is not charging anything for the inspection. So
Wow.
you don't need to collect anything from the borrower. If the borrower ends up falling out and working with a different lender, we would just
Hmm.
eat the cost. So,
Okay.
so this will work for pretty much, yeah, like I said, 80 to 90% of conventional, you could get 24-hour appraisals done.
Yeah. Then are you waiting until ITP to then have the
Right,
appraiser do their actual work?
right,
Got it. Got it.
exactly.
So what percentage of appraisals actually are completed within 24 hours?
Very, I mean, very high. So we launched this in like the end of last year and basically have been in pilot phase with a couple dozen lenders in the
Oh,
last, month and a half or two, essentially. And yeah, vast majority of them come in 24 hour. Really the only thing that bottlenecks if a report doesn't come in 24 hours is if the property contact themselves like doesn't have the availability for us to go
got
do the
it.
inspection in the first place. So yeah, I mean, if you think about the time it takes for an appraiser to actually create the report, it's just a
Yep.
couple hours.
Yep.
So really, it's all the inspection logistics and finding the right appraiser and all that, which is all the stuff that we handle automatically.
Yeah. So, I mean, this definitely, the concept like takes change management conversation in an organization to even change from the old school of waiting for ITP. The tools are ready before the organizations are, and I see that across membership. So can you talk about what change management looks like? And I know you only have a couple, but what have you seen take shape on the
Yeah.
24-hour appraisal from a change management perspective?
Obviously we come in, we're like, we want to do this as automated as possible, and then people are like, well, let's slow roll it a little bit. So like the end state for some of the folks who have gotten there now are, for example, with Encompass, it's completely automated. So there are milestones that get triggered where we send out inspections. We're actually
Yep.
reading the AUS findings
Yep.
and ordering the right product. So it can be all automated. But to your point, folks are like, first of all, let's test this out in a small geography. We usually do that. And then some folks have, loan officers that have different preferences. Like for whatever reason, maybe a borrower still wants to get a full appraisal, or something like that, right? So there's different kind of spectrums of automation and customization where you can say, okay, for this branch, we want to do it this way. For this branch, we want to do it this way. And some lenders are doing this like completely manually, where they're just initiating the orders, whenever they want, sort of thing.
Yep.
So it's a completely tiered system that you can customize and it moves at the pace at which the organization adopts. But you can imagine like once one or two loan officers start getting 24-hour appraisals, people are like, okay, I want to,
Yeah, get out of the way, get out of the
yeah,
way and let it go.
right.
We do have a question in the chat from Norma who is asking how your appraisers are doing on being ready for the UAD 3.6.
Yeah, I mean we're pretty much ready. Like we did a big survey to appraisers around which one are eligible. I think the biggest bottleneck at this point for 3.6 are the actual form software providers. So like two of the biggest form softwares that the appraisers use to create the reports really aren't fully there yet.
Yep.
So like 90% of appraisers are kind of waiting on their form software. So that's why part of our roadmap, we're actually building free form software right now. But
And-
yeah, U83.6 and all of that is going to be um, worked on in parallel. Like our lenders are doing this pilot for the 24-hour appraisal, and then we're also piloting U83.6 with lenders as well.
All right, awesome. Before we get to roadmap, let's talk about the repurchase warranty and cost structure. So your warranty product, because it's one, is really compelling. What does the repurchase warranty cover, and what has the track record look like in that warranty?
Yeah, for just for those who don't know. So like I was saying in the beginning, like our two areas that we want to focus on, borrower experience, which we view as like turn time and cost transparency, and then operational efficiency, which underwriting the appraisal is a huge part of. So step one, we launched this review tool, which essentially extracts the data from the appraisal, runs hundreds of rules, including computer vision. So we're looking at the photos using AI and a bunch of things like that. And that in and of itself took the time that it took an underwriter to complete a review by like half. So if it took, 20 minutes now, it's getting done in 10 sort of thing. But then we thought, like, how can we take that a step further so that lenders literally do not even need to look at appraisals? And so
Yep.
essentially, we developed a warranty offering where contractually we will take on the liability associated with a repurchase for an appraisal. And so we basically have like an even more advanced rule set where if it passes our rules, we will put our stamp of approval and warranty against it. So if you end up having a repurchase and you lose $30,000, on the scratch and dent market, we will write you a check for $30,000. So this is eligible on a roughly 70% of conventional orders, like the
Mhm.
lower risk bucket, you can imagine. And so we have lender customers who literally are auto approving a huge chunk of their appraisals without looking at it. And we've
Yep.
run this on tens of thousands of appraisals at this point, and we've over the last 2 years, year and a half, and have had zero repurchases so far. So the tech is working.
Yeah. Yeah. The zero repurchase in over a year is an amazing stat. Do you know how many so you were reviewed for that warranty? You said tens of thousands. Do you know the amount?
I want to say somewhere between 70 and 80,000 appraisals, something like that.
Yeah. And this is a question that I often get. Like we were talking about change management earlier. Have lenders been successful in getting their underwriters or their collateral underwriting desk not to recheck the warranted appraisal
Mhm.
review of Reggora?
Yeah, it's definitely similarly like a learning curve. And
Yeah.
some folks kind of have to put in safeguards where it's almost like we're just automating the status updates and encompassing and stuff so that once it is approved, it's marked as approved and no one's touching it, sort of thing. But in the beginning, some folks obviously are double checking and making sure it's all good. But the whole point is like, look, you don't need to, even if it is wrong and there is a repurchase, we're going to pay for it. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're trying to help you sleep at night.
Yeah, and I think on conventional loans is the key. I have no idea why we look at, a human has to look at 80% of conventional appraisals in this day and age with the technology that's available. Let's talk about the cost. So, what does the cost structure look like for a lender, for those using Rigor as an AMC and beyond?
Yeah, so all this kind of stuff is optional and bundleable. Like some people just use the core platform, some people use the core platform and review, some people use everything under the sun with our appraisal marketplace, right? So there's different bundles depending on kind of everything you're using. Obviously, the more stuff you use, the cheaper you can get it. And a lot of times we just give this warranty for free. But if you're paying like kind of sticker price and out of pocket, the great thing about appraisal technology is it's all just bundled into the transaction fee. So
Yep,
95% of our lenders don't even pay out of pocket. It's just kind of bundled into the, transaction fee.
yep.
Uh, so yeah, I'd say that's typically how people pay for it.
So the story is use the AMC, get the review technology included, which also on 70 to 80% of appraisals is going to get you the warranty against repurchase. That's a pretty strong value proposition for any lender looking to reduce underwriting touches without adding line item costs.
Totally. And just to be clear, that warranty and the review product aren't just for our AMC. Like you can use that across your
Yeah.
entire vendor, customer base. So that's a unique thing that no one else is doing that we do, like
Yeah.
where we will actually warrant an appraisal that came from someone else.
Yep. Yeah, that is great because we do still have those. We have the loan officers that have to work with their AMCs, and you
Right.
can't get them to shake away from it. Even, it's their comfort zone. So that is very important to note so that you could be receiving that review and warranty on majority of your loans. So, Brian, you started to talk about roadmap, but I want to make sure we talk about what is coming. You mentioned the new form software for appraisals, and the current desktop tools have been around forever. Brian and I were talking on about on our prep call that I remember receiving appraisals that had the pictures, and I've even seen like the Polaroid pictures be stapled to the appraisal. And I was telling him sometimes it was very difficult. It looks like the staple was strategically placed to cover up a crack in a basement wall. So we've come a long way from those days, but we still have some very aged technology that appraisers are using to develop the appraisal. So a slight improvement from the physical pictures, but what is Reggora building and why does it matter to lenders?
Yeah, so Regora's been around at this point. We launched in 2018. It's been like 8 years. We never built the actual software that the appraisers use to create the report because as I was saying earlier, it's not really the bottleneck. Like it just takes a couple hours to actually generate the report. But now with this transition to UAD 3.6, appraisers are basically having to relearn, the entire new way to create these reports. And so we want to make it as easy as possible. And so normally these appraisers are paying like thousands of dollars a year for this software, and it's like really old. Like some of them are just like desktop downloadable; they're not even on the cloud, sort of thing. And so we're just going to give it away for free. And essentially, the goal there is one, make it as easy as possible for appraisers to learn and use UAD 3.6. And then you can imagine in combination with our review tool and our AMC and all that, if we can help to pre-QC the reports before they even get there and arm the appraisers with all this data because we have access to like public record data across the country, MLS data,
Yeah,
analytics, AI. We can help empower all of that. It's going to just improve turn times and quality and cost, because I believe like the future are these hybrids, right? Where appraisers will be sitting at their desk. So if you're using amazing software, you could bust out, three a day,
yeah,
basically,
yeah.
if you're being really efficient with your time. So that's kind of the future we're driving towards.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that licensing is similar. If you get licensed in multiple states, do you physically have to be in the state as an appraiser, or could you theoretically sit in the Northeast and have 4 or 5 states that you're able to do the appraisals for?
There are some appraisers that do that, but I'm a little bit weary in that you still want an appraiser that has local geographical competence, right? One of the complaints about that some before Rigora people had around hybrid appraisals were, well, you can guess who was complaining, were values coming in low. Uh,
Yeah.
and so like how you can obviously you can't like do anything specifically to prevent that to happen, but you can reduce it by trying to get the most qualified appraiser possible, right?
Yep.
And so even for these hybrids, we still want local, geographically competent appraisers. So like if
Awesome.
you're the appraiser doing your like summer vacation in Hawaii or whatever, and you're getting a ton of like Massachusetts orders, we probably still want like an actual Massachusetts appraiser.
Yeah, understood, and love the value proposition for the client on that as well. And then for lenders in our audience, it's not just about the Reggora platform, it's about the entire appraisal ecosystem modernization. What should lenders be doing now to prepare for this modernization?
I mean, yeah, I think a few things. One, which is like back in 2021, the way that the GSEs kind of saved the mortgage industry was by cranking appraisal waivers up to literally 40, 50% of transactions were getting
Yep.
appraisal waivers. Now they've introduced new products to kind of replace some of that, like PDRs, data collection,
Yep.
hybrids. And so I don't think we're going to get that relief valve next time there's like a really busy market, which could even be like rates dipping into the fives. Like who knows? We could even get, a pretty big refi season this spring. You want to have this stuff vetted out before that. You know, like you don't want to be the lender in the middle of the season where the loan officers are screaming at you because the appraisals are going so poorly that you're like, okay, now we need a solution, right? You
Yep.
want to have that all figured out in advance. Same principle for U83.6. Like the deadline is November. Most of our lender customers are starting now and in April and in May, basically, to, start producing these orders. So,
Yep.
there's not, it's going to creep up fast.
Yeah, for sure. So today is the time to reach out and start preparing for a bubble in production, which we'll be very excited about in the industry, and then also just in front of the appraisal form changes and being in front of that. So today is the time to prepare to get ready for that. So Brian, last question. What is one thing that you want lenders to walk away with from the conversation today?
Um, if I had to pick, it would be that 24-hour appraisals are possible and are happening.
Yep.
And once you kind of can believe that and hear our process, you'll see that too.
Yep. Brian, this has been such a great conversation and it went by so quickly. The 24-hour appraisal, the repurchase warranty, and the AI review layer and appraisal form software, Reggora is building an end-to-end appraisal ecosystem. And I think the industry is ready for it and it is well overdue. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being our sponsor and for making today's conversation possible. Reach out to the Reggora team to learn more. And if you're a TMC member and want to explore how this fits your operations, you know where you can find us. And we will be here next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for our lender members and 4 Eastern on LinkedIn for the broader industry. And until next time, keep sipping. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Bye bye.